If you hear some munching, it's Kraken over there. She's eating lunch, so she's thinking about that. Anyway, so that's what's going on. She might yell at me in a bit to go out, but we'll find out when that happens. Hang on. Is that better? Maybe. Anyway, it's Friday. It really is Friday. It's Friday, and the kids are home because there's parent-teacher conferences, and so it's Friday, but it sounds like a Saturday. But they're all playing games and building Legos, which is very wholesome. What else is going on? I think the most amazing thing to me, personally, some of you may remember I've been talking about fossils around our house, things that I keep finding. I've come to the conclusion in the last week that they're all fossils, every single one. I can't, I was talking to somebody, I was trying to message, I'm trying to find researchers who are specifically interested in this era, you know, Cretaceous, inland sea stuff, like what was here, because I want to tell them about this. Maybe it'd be useful for them for research, but like I was talking to one person, I was like, you know, I don't think I can lean over and pick up a rock and not find that it's full of fossils. And then I realized that a lot of the rocks I were picking up were nothing but fossils. But I tested that theory. I went outside because that wind blew something over. So I was out front. And I was thinking about that conversation. I looked down and there was a piece of rock sticking out of the dirt. Just one place. And I picked it up. There it is. And it just looks like a gray stone. But even this one, remember, ammonites are mostly what I'm finding here. And they're the coily things. They look like nautiluses, or whatever they are. They're related to that, but these creatures were more closely related to octopuses and things like that. They had a curly shell on the top, and they would grow out like this, and then it would go down, and they would come back up and stop in a little hook, and then they would sort of be little feeders in the food column, controlling their buoyancy. Here, I'll insert a picture. Anyway, here's actually a better illustration. This is a big piece I found. And you can see, here's the start. It's the center. Wait, am I confused? Oh, no, yes, I am confused. Oh, man, you can see, like there's a little one right here, look. You get your it coils out and goes over, and there's your trumpet. You can see there's stuff here. You can see part of this whorl that's right there. And this is because these things, they lived in these little tubes, and they had like a little hatch on the top, just like a snail in your garden. Remember, they pull into their shell, and there's a hatch that covers the end of the shell. Same thing. There's part of it right there. So this would be the end of the exit of a tube for a larger one. And it's got all this black material that appears to be some kind of, I don't know, some kind of organic material, some kind of black staining. Same with this. And you can see some of the patterns are retained. You can see the different segments of it here. And this is just one. And this is in pieces. I mean, look at how many of them there are. Like this is a section, this is a piece of one right here. But then we can take this whole piece and you can see it's just bananas. I get confused because there's so many of them. And there's all like smashed together. It's like, this was like this, like the mud, it's not like smooth layers of sandstone. It's all this, like everything got all mushed up. Like there was something going through. There's more of those. Look, you can see more of the circles here. It's just wild. There's another one of the little hatches right there. It's just crazy the stuff that's in here. I just wish I knew more of this staining. Oh, it's wild. Oh, anyway, so this is the kind of stuff that I'm finding. You can see the middle there, and it comes up and over, and you get your exit over there, and you can see it's got these. What are these? Like these little leaf-like structures. There's a lot of symmetry going on. I don't know, it's wild. But I just have to lean over and pick this stuff up. It's just sitting on the ground. Look at them all. Wow. Anyway, so all of this rock that I'm picking up, all of it, it's like if you made rock jello out of uncountable numbers of ammonites. So the whole thing is there. It's all filled. It's like nothing but ammonite. One side to the next. And then you just cut out a section of it in the middle, pulled it out. That's what this rock looks like. I don't... I'm trying to think. This is one I picked up. Yeah, you can see it. Let's see. Do you see the radial pattern? Do you see the, I'm trying to think. Yeah, basically it uncoils from, and there's so many, they're overlapping and underlapping each other. It's just crazy. So I can see the circles and the cycles there. That's another part of it. Basically it's the other side of it. If I had to really, what I should do is to take a picture of this and then draw over it in on my iPad. God, that's crazy. Like these ammonites, they apparently their body plan is only loosely known, and very little is known about what is going on inside of them. But based on some similar species, some guesses have been made about them, including that they would have two sort of feather-shaped gills, and I don't know if that's what that is. But there's two little feathery things in the middle, because this whole thing is the middle of an ammonite, or actually a bunch of ammonites. Anyway, I'm just researching, blathering about fossils. Okay, let's wrist check. Okay, wrist check. Too many watches. But this one, when I found it again, I was like, oh, right, I have one of those. And I'd just been looking at it, and it actually pushed my 6139 off my wrist. This is a 7C43 7010 200-meter diver unit. No, bidirectional bezel. But 200-meter resistance with a screw-down crystal retaining ring. You can actually see the lugs, those slightly thicker lines there. And so they're just great. And people had asked me a while ago, is there, let's quartzify a SKX 007. Well, it occurred to me when I was wearing this thing yesterday that that's pretty much what this is. Same dial. I mean, the dial text is slightly different, but if it had the chrome handset, this would look almost exactly like a 007. They're beautiful fit and finish. Gorgeous watches. One, I would say, the last of Seiko's true tool watches in this style for quartz. I mean, you can make an argument for the 007, and they certainly will work for that, but this just strikes me as a little more tooly. Anyway, these are beautiful, and they've been overlooked. People seem to have forgotten about them. These are great watches. Okay, that's what I'm wearing anyway. So, let's begin. Anyway, There it is. I mean, I don't know why it didn't occur to me before. You want a quartz SKX 007? There it is. If you put a 007 handset on this, it would, there'd be, wow. Jose F. Gonzalez. I swear I know that name. Jose F. Gonzalez. Have we spoken before? Gosh, it's just very familiar. Okay, so he is making a comment about my cousin, Daniel Klein, who runs Port City Amps. Port City Amps is Daniel Klein. Daniel Klein is Port City. And he hand makes all of his own amplifiers for the business and tube amps, all custom built high-end stuff. As a guitar dude first, watch dude second, I never made the connection between you two. I'd never heard a bad word about Port City. Everyone that uses them does nothing but sing their praises. Well, that's great. Thank you. I will pass that on to Daniel. Though he watched the last video, I'll just tell him to watch this one. Yeah, I've gotten a number of contacts about the connection between Daniel and myself. I had a gentleman write me. I need to write him back. Who is he's a noted maker of correct replacement pickguards for Gretsch guitars. Hang on just one second. So I got an email from a gentleman by the name of Paul Setzer. Paul Setzer lives in North Carolina, not too far, about an hour away, he said. I read up on him. He makes hand makes the best reproductions for vintage Gretsch guitars. And so it was very nice to hear from him. That's cool. If you're watching, Mr. Setzer, I love Gretsch guitars. When I was in my first real band back in college, we were sort of a country swing kind of band kind of thing. And I played upright bass, but my rhythm guitarist had a beautiful Gretsch. I only have black and white pictures of it, but I want to put one in here. Anyway, beautiful Gretsch. Man, that was a nice guitar. Okay. Carbine Kyle. This is a comment about an early World War II issued dress watch. Cool, I have a Helios watch. I collect radioactive items, and vintage watches I come across, I try to get. Mine has the original radium lume on the hands and dial, and overall it's in good condition. Keeps accurate time too. I think mine's from the 1950s or 1960s. It says Helios shock resist waterproof 17 joules anti-magnetic on the dial. Yeah. It has red sweep seconds hand with radium lume near the end, all 12 numerals, and the 12 small red numerals, 24-hour time, so it's most likely a military watch. The activity is 6,070 counts per minute from my Inspector USB Geiger-Müller counter at contact or at half a centimeter. Anyway, thank you for sharing this. Radium, wow. I remember, what did I do? I got in, oh man, this was so long ago, 10, 12 years ago. I got in a World War II marching compass. It was British Ministry of Defense marked and everything. And it was liquid filled and just quite extraordinarily clearly filled with just lots and lots of radium. Like really, they really piled it on. And I read up on them, and I was looking at those specific, I found, posts and stuff, people talking about them, and the consensus was that if you own one of these, the recommendation is to get it out of your house because they are so radioactive. So I actually, I'm trying to remember what I did with that thing. I think I sold it online to the first buyer with the caveat that it is extraordinarily radioactive. I hope the person that bought it knew that. But you also reminded me of another story about radium. Well, hang on a second. Here's my workbench clock. That's just a regular clock. It's actually a chronograph. World War II. These were fighter planes and bombers. But radium. That's pretty neat. So you got the radium, and it just sits there. There was, during the war, there was a British Vickers Wellington. I think it was a Vickers Wellington. It was one of the planes that had, instead of having the stringers and everything being, in plane vertical or horizontal, the whole thing was done with like twisted, girders and supports and everything like this. It gives it a lot more torsional strength. It's the way that shark skins are set up, actually. They do the same thing. But anyway, these guys, they got shot down during a night raid over Germany, and they managed to land on a frozen lake in like Norway or Sweden. And the guys got out, everybody survived, and when the ice finally gave way, down to the bottom it went. People knew it was there, but they just left it there. It wasn't until like I think the late 80s, maybe the 90s, I'm not sure, divers found this plane again, and it was in very deep, very cold fresh water. So it was just sitting on the bottom, and the divers go down to this World War II bomber there in the dark and the cold, and they looked in through the windows, because they could, and they said you could see all the instruments glowing in the dark of the bottom of the lake. I always thought that was a cool image. Okay. ST, from a wearability point of view, is the 7C43 lighter due to the plastic plate? Would mod hands for the 6309 fit the 7548? I would think that the mod hands would fit. I can't remember right off the top of my head. Whether the 7C43 is lighter than the 6309? Absolutely, without question. A lot less material inside. Is the 7C43, does it weigh less than a 7548? I would think so. The 7548 is a taller watch, it's thicker. They're playing, this is playing. It's a thicker watch, and it has more metal again in the movement. The 7C movements are pretty tight. They're not, like the 754X movement family they're kind of like the last of the old style Seiko quartz movements, to my thinking, in the sense that they're big, they're strong, they're bolted together, they're screwed together, they're built like a watch, like a mechanical watch. After this, the 7Cs, that's when you get into more the sort of the modern kind of quartz movements, which are much more lightly built and compact, and you use things like spring clips rather than screws. So I have to believe the 7C is significantly lighter than even the 7548. I have to tell you, I mean, this is on a Z199, the genuine one, and it's not really heavy at all. They're having some conflict about the game. I mean, it's all in good fun, but I tell you, if you're a child-free person, this is not the watch channel for you. Why would I have a beard cowlick, like a beard lick, that my beard would go this way? Every day we're finding things out. Hi, Spencer. I hope you, Sabrina, and the kids are doing okay, question mark. You can hear for yourself. I'm looking forward to seeing the garage workshop build. Oh man, I've got like, it's coming along, but I've got some stuff showing up today that's going to allow me to play Bluetooth from my iPhone on my dad's like 1957 Telefunken Opus 7. That's going to be really nice. The sound is amazing, by the way. I'll tell you about that. Mail call question, if I may. I've just picked up a 7548 from that certain auction site. No idea if it's running at the moment, and it's missing its bezel. So I'm guessing the 7002, 6309, 7548 bezels are all interchangeable, with the possible exception of the later 200M 7002. And as we have the bonnet up, what would you up jewel the movement for longevity, and if so, what parts would you add jewels to? Okay, so let's go back to the bezels and interchangeability. A 7548 bezel and a 6309 bezel or 6306 bezel, they're exactly the same. The same exact thing. There are some minor variations in how the grip knurling is done. Very slight differences. It's two concentric rings stacked on top of each other, and then with a round bit to machine out half round divots all the way around. So jig, 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 jig. Sometimes those divots are deeper or shallower, and it gives a different look, but they exchange perfectly. The 7002 rings will kind of fit. I mean, you can put them on a 7548 or a 6309, but they don't really sit right, and they don't look right. They have this sort of blobby, half-melted look. I'm not quite sure why Seiko did it that way. Maybe because they went from this beautiful, sharp, brushed, machined turning ring to one that looks like it was, honestly, it looks like it was maybe kind of stamped in a mold on the outside and then machined internally. That's my guess, because they're sort of, cutting corners there. If Seiko can cut off a few pennies per unit, they're going to do it. So anyway, 6306, 6309, or 7548. And with the bonnet up on a 7002, would you up jewel the movement for longevity? 7002s are part of that first 7000 family, 7005, 7006, all that kind of stuff. There are some with more jewels or less jewels. They changed so you can have the same movement with different jewel counts. And that's true for Suwa too. If I had a 7002 in front of me, see, but they're beautifully jeweled. They're beautifully jeweled. I mean, they don't have like cap jewels or diaphix or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, they do. They have diet shock, so they have cap jewels there, but not on the train. Everything that needed to be jeweled in that watch is jeweled. Except for the upper and lower mainspring arbor ports, but a 7000 series doesn't nearly grind away that arbor port as much as a 6309 does, because of the nature and the geometry of the train of 7000 series all the way down to the smaller size of the balance. It takes less power to push everything around. That is not true in the 6000s from Suwa. So, but all that said, if I had a 7002 and I was determined to make it, oh God, I thought she was walking like a pony or something. Holy shoot, that's a big dog. Wow, man. What the heck was I saying? I would go ahead and jewel the lower mainspring arbor port. Why not? But beyond that, they have jewels where the jewels need to be. They don't need them. I can't think of anything. I mean, if you were going to go nuts, you could try to, put in like diaphix and stuff, but screw it. They're really good, simple, strong movements, well designed, reliable, durable. They take servicing beautifully. They will sustain a nice, high, clean balance. They're accurate. They'll take punishment. I have a lot of faith in the 7002 movement. Gold Bond 11. Where did I put it? Is it over there? Hang on. It's just, it's such a piece of perfection. I love the 6105, the Willard case, the asymmetric case. I love that case. But in terms of functionality, design and everything, this to me was the high point, really, of these classic divers. This is the one that it's so absolutely simple and clean. It is a supersymmetry, the shape on this case, but they're so unique, and the quality is just like the height of what Sua could do at that time. This is, I mean, that's all original brushing. There's that really clean machining, by the way, around that bezel, and the flat printed dials. That made all the difference. All the difference. It's just this is a tool. This is a working watch, and it's just, they did a beautiful job with this. These things are watches for the ages. Without a doubt, one of the greatest dive watches ever produced. I don't care what anybody else says. This is an iconic dive watch design. There's no replacing it. There's no mistaking it. It didn't look like anything else that was made at that time. It was unique. I mean, it's the living definition of in-house. Everything. That's why this was so unique. It wasn't just another watch to fill out, shelves in a duty-free shop. This was designed to do a job. Wow, they're beautiful watches. Breaks my heart how pretty they are. Subtropic Time. Talking about my Seiko, the watch servicing guide, with especially the time grapher instructions that you guys had. Those time grapher references are super cool. Is that only a physical thing, or is it up online anywhere? I don't know that it's ever been put online. I didn't think that it was rare information. I really didn't. I'm kind of out of date on some stuff. I think that what I'm remembering probably stopped being the case like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago or more. You used to be able to find the complete servicing guides in varying levels of condition and completeness, but they weren't too terribly expensive. I think the most I ever saw one go for was like $60-$70, and they weren't bad. But apparently, according to VB, the problem with the old Seiko technical guides is that because they're loose leaf, people sell single pages online like some kind of chop shop. Great, just like Fender guitars. My librarian mother would not be happy with this behavior. I think for it to be fair to Spencer, a sizable crowdfund would be in order. On eBay, a single sheet goes for like $25. So 25 by 60 pages, I guess, be $1,500 minimum. Oh, that thing's got hundreds of pages, and I'd have to say, coming on half of them are twice size. They're big. I'd pitch in $100 to fund a high-quality PDF scan without hesitation. What do you think? It never occurred to me that anybody would need that information. It never occurred to me that if I had the ability to scan it, I mean, it's not mine. It belongs to Seiko. Well, the book belongs to me. The information belongs to Seiko. I would have no problem whatsoever scanning and putting up a free PDF on the website. It wouldn't bother me at all. People are talking about money, and I'm like, money? I don't get it. Like, there was this guy last week talking about that thing. Like, he wanted me to, like, he was the same guy who yelled at me a couple of months ago because I was allowing Sebastian to speak during the making of a video that Sebastian and I were making together on father-son stuff, working on watches. And this gentleman was telling me I was a bad disciplinarian because my son was speaking. Anyway, that guy wrote me and said, hey, mail me your thing, and I'll do a high-quality scan to PDF for free. Gosh, okay. Less 5%. And I was like, 5% of what? 5% of, like, it literally made no sense to me. I didn't understand it. But apparently, the information is hard to come by. I don't know. I guess it's something we're going to have to look into. If people want that servicing guide online, I can look into making that happen. I don't know how we do that, but I'm not opposed to it. I'll just put it up on the website and people can share it, and the information goes everywhere, and then we save more Seikos. Tom N. He had a big long comment, but I'm going to just stick to the watch stuff, Tom. I hope you don't mind. Couple of questions and comments. Talking about what you said about reading a comment from someone saying the 8R48 minute and hour hands move independently of the sweep seconds hand. He is, I believe, confusing the chronograph hand with the running seconds, which is another thing entirely. So I think that's what he meant. 2, the service manual is beautiful. How often did they come out? Did each one cover a specific movement family, or were they all in volume 3? The way they work, it seems to cover a bunch of the base calibers, going from like the ladies 1100 all the way up through 5100s, 5740 high beats, in 6106, which covers 6119, and then you have 6138, 6139. I don't think they really have 7000 series. Mine is, I suspect, I haven't looked at it recently. It's volume 1 of the servicing guide. I don't know. I'll have to look at it. But basically, it's sort of you're supposed to find the movement, the base movement that the watch you're working on is part of, that movement family, and then go to that relevant page and adjust if you need. Okay. Oh, and then this is just your observation, Tom, on talking about the differences between homage and art. Okay, and the other, and a copy, blah, blah, blah. My breakdown of terms: homage, an artistic, usually high-quality rendering done in honor of the original, yet not a direct copy. Reissue, as the name suggests, very true to the original and from the original manufacturer. Replica, a fairly thorough copy of a well-known item, usually of lesser quality but clearly identified as such and not made to deceive. Last and certainly least, the counterfeit. I'd say the recent spate of Seikos are not true reissues, but are homages. The various faithful copies of popular watches, especially Rolex, are either replicas, i.e. the AliExpress specials, or out-and-out counterfeits, not homages, as they are often euphemistically or self-deceitfully called. Yeah, like that guy that was making those. Why can't I ever remember the name of the dude? His logo was a flower of some kind, and he made basically the closest possible thing you could get to Rolex quality that wasn't a Rolex. He had his own brand, and then he was outed as apparently being somebody who was so good because he was capable of apparently making imitation fake Rolexes that were almost Rolex quality. I don't know if that's true. That's what I've read. Jim Canataro. Question about acrylic watch crystals. I have a watch from the late 1960s that has some crazing tiny, which are crazing is you get something that's plastic or like old paint and it like cracks up. Not like mud cracks, but it just, you get these weird internal material failures. They show up as cracks. Some collectors prize this as it means the crystal is original, but to me it just makes the dial illegible. Do you know if these cracks tend to form near the surface of the crystal? If so, then I would imagine they could be polished out. Any advice would be great. Thanks, Spencer, and I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate everything you do. When I got my uncle's Rolex Explorer, it had, the crystal was original, and apparently an original Rolex Explorer crystal with that kind of crazing, as you said, is quite valuable. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I still have it. I still have the crystal, but I did not put it back in. Those little cracks, I don't know what, I'm not, the material is somehow parting internally, I think. I don't know how. I have read that in that particular case with the Rolex Explorer, because of all of the radioactive lume or the radium on the dial, that it would break down the plastic. I'm not sure if that's true, But overall, generally for me, I would say I have no interest in retaining an old crystal unless it is perfectly functionally serviceable, and if it has any wear, that it would be extremely minor and would not detract from viewing the watch at all. I don't see any point in me personally having, from a functional standpoint, I want to have the best crystal possible inside a watch to protect it. That's just me. I'm sorry. The the wristwatch experience. I think those Sears traditions were made by Hoyer, at least for some time during the 60s and 70s. I think you're right. And to refresh everybody's mind, Sears tradition, it was their in-house watch brand. And in those days, back then, Sears had a rock solid reputation, not like what they became. And so they had, I mean, the Seiko 6139s were really popular, and Sears wanted one, so they made their own version using the Seiko 6139 aesthetics in a case that held a Valjoux 7750 made by Hoyer. The first time I ever saw one, I was on eBay forever ago. I don't even know how forever ago. And I came across it. I was just scanning for used watches, and I'm like, yeah, that looks like a 6139. And I looked at it, I'm like, what the hell is that thing? And I'm looking at it, and this was early on, and I was dumb. It was $150, I think, and it was intact. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for that with a crappy tradition font on the dial. I could have had a 7750 built by Hoyer for Sears. What a conversation piece. And using aesthetics from Seiko. Super annoyed that I didn't buy that watch. Mihai Pascu. Hi Spencer, can a seconds hand on a Seiko 7017 speed timer be replaced? Yes. I have one that's missing the central seconds hand. What would be compatible? The Dynie chronographs. Unlike the Suez, the Dynie chronographs, all of the flat key section of the pinion for the chronograph wheel and the hand that goes on it were pre-oriented correctly. So you don't have to adjust them or try to drop on a hand and get it to be straight. They're made to go together. So you just go whoop, and you just put one on. That's it. And it should be I believe it's any of those 701 Blanc hands. It's just a matter of the color will be different. But that's one of the great things about Dynie chronos is that they went to the effort and trouble to have that part be keyed in, and so it makes repairs easier, replacements easier, it makes assembly faster. Okay, also, in your latest video, I heard correctly that you say you're not supposed to lubricate the pallet fork pivot jewels, which I knew, but also not the pallet fork jewels that meet the escape wheel. No. 94015 is the lubrication I use. There's an illustration in the guide over there. It talks about it and it actually shows like the stone. Imagine this is the end. This is the actual. You're looking at the stone sideways. This is going to be the impulse face of one of those stones. So you're looking at it sideways, and it shows you the amount of lubrication that's supposed to be on there, about like this. And I do both stones, entrance and exit stone, and that has served me well. I know other people say you should only do the exit stone. I know some people say you're supposed to do this exit stone and then you run it for a fair amount. You run it for 5 or 10 minutes and then you reapply to the exit stone. There's other things to do as well, but that's how I do it. But I don't pre-lubricate like the teeth on the escape wheel or anything else like that. One of the worst things that can happen, though it's easily cured, is that if you have too much lubrication on those parts, especially on the teeth, what'll happen is you get a lot of movement in there, is the with the shaking and the stopping is you will have lubrication migrate up the pallet fork, and it'll get onto the pinion, and stick on the jewel. And what lubrication, especially a pretty solid, physically immobile lubricant like 9415, it acts like a dampening grease. So instead of your pallet fork, flipping back and forth like, as it should, it's going to be slowed down because it's dragging all this grease back and forth. That's why you don't want to over lube. That is the issue. Oh, isn't that cute? People have baskets on their bikes. Okay. So I think that's about it for watch questions. That's all I've got here. I had some people made some comments about the things I talked about for ADHD. And I didn't want to answer them because it would be rude not to. They took the time to write. But you should know, if you don't care about this stuff, turn it off. Everything after this point will be this personal stuff. Okay. So this is all ADHD stuff. ST for, nope, sorry, wrong. Subtropic time. And thank you as always for sharing so generously and on a personal level. I can totally relate. I bet a lot of us can. I have a condition, related, that made school years and beyond so challenging. If I could, I wouldn't go back and change a thing. If I was given that option, I wouldn't go back at all. I don't want to go back to the past. I don't want to go, hell no. My life has been getting progressively better, and I want that to continue. I wouldn't go to the past for any amount of love and money. Everything I've ever wanted, everything that has ever been important to me, and all the sort of improvement in my life are happening on this end. I'm a pretty happy dude. Things are kind of going my way, but I get you, and I think that's a healthy and reasonable thing to say. I accept my life. I don't know, man, because also if you go back and change things, you're going to have to live through the same music you've already heard, and it's going to be terrible. Okay, Ryan Walters. Our understanding of these brain conditions is still so early in developing. It's so unfortunate, too, as it also creates stigmas for young children in the context of school and specific subject performance. Parents and educators don't grasp this as a consequence of our developing understanding. And this manifests itself as a diagnosis by educators and parents of, quote, lazy / incompetent / incapable / unwilling, etc. students that might actually need assistance in understanding to learn and develop. I had to do parent-teacher conference. I did parent-teacher conferences yesterday. I met with Willow's teacher, and she has my ADHD. She has it, but she also has ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. But her teacher's a really nice dude, and he watches over her, and she's done really well with him. And so when I mentioned yesterday, talking about this stuff and how Willow deals with stress and asking her how she's doing and her sort of socialization and that stuff, and he was very clear on it. And he makes a point of trying to help her bridge gaps to people. And I was very happy after talking with him, and I'm glad that I went. I wasn't originally going to go. It was Sabrina was going to go, but then that's the way this worked out. I ended up going, but I'm actually quite happy about that. Okay, Jeff Brocklebank. I had to do a double take when I started watching the video. I thought Spencer was George Lucas. If I was George Lucas, I wouldn't have sold to Disney. But, I want to make my own gosh darn sequel trilogy. That's what I would have done. Also, if I was George Lucas, I would start pruning my creation. But if I were George Lucas, I wouldn't know how to do it correctly, so I probably shouldn't do that. Any case. Hey, that's a very nice thing to say. I appreciate it. We love you for who you are, and it sure seems like you were the person you were supposed to be now. I very much appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I never take any of this stuff for granted, and, all we can do is what we can do. I mean, it's not hard to try to make the world a slightly nicer place. So that is the thing. As Ryan Walters said in his as last piece from the author Kurt Vonnegut, who's one of my favorites, the purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved. I think that's, you know, man, the world is hard enough as it is. I mean, we humans, we excel in a few things on a really like societal genetic level. One of them is just making life hell for other members of our own species. We love conflict and we create conflict and we pursue conflict, and war is second to our nature, if not first to our nature. So, you know, it'd be nice for that to stop, but I do appreciate you guys with the nice feedback. I think things are changing about ADHD. I hope. I mean, what do I know? I've only been diagnosed since February, March, and then I had to go through all this medication protocols and all this different stuff, which is fine. They had to figure out what was going to work. And so the spring was actually really kind of weird for me because my brain chemistry was getting jacked with. But I think I'm in a groove and everything sort of settled down, and it just kind of felt like everything sort of came into focus. It's amazing to realize that I don't have to keep being the same person, that I can't bend the bars of this prison personality a little bit. Well, it turns out I think that I can. Therapy's been very helpful. I would say generally therapy was good. There was a semi-unrelated problem with therapy that was unfortunate, and it could have easily been avoided, but it wasn't. But you know, it's not the end of the world. A lot of good things came out of therapy, so I'm happy about that. It's just, you know, it's amazing to look around and say, hey, you know what? The world's a different place. It's not the world that I thought it was. It's like half watching a movie. You've half watched a movie like 4 times because it's been on the background, because it's on TV or something, and you think you understand the movie, and then at some point down the line you sit down and you actually watch it for some reason. You realize you didn't kind of understand it at all, and that in fact you were quite wrong about sort of the central core meaning and thrust of it. And that's kind of what this is like. I'm like, I try not to lean too much into thinking, you know, how if I was, you know, how much of what I have perceived through the course of my life was real or not. I would just go crazy if you start thinking about that. But I don't know. It's you know, all this stuff helps. You don't want to sit in a hole and do nothing. You got to get up and you got to move, metaphorically as well as in real life. Anyway, that's about it. This coming weekend, by the way, if anybody is still watching, I want to do a big video about all about the 754X movements and how fantastic they are, and also specifically about the slimline mid-size sport diver range that Seiko came out with, and the amazing quality of them. Not just the movement, but Seiko pulled out the stops when they made this, and no one, almost very, very few people you ever see anybody wearing any of these lines of sport divers. I want to talk about them more. Not now. Now it's Friday afternoon. I'm waiting for Amazon. Amazon is going to bring me stuff to work in my garage, and we're gonna get going. It's going to be pretty cool. All right, folks. Thank you for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate your comments, and you know, we just kind of get through. Why don't we just all, you know, get along a little bit? Okay. See you folks later.